Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Von Biggs, and let's queer up health. 55% of LGBTQ adults are bisexual. So why are they still misunderstood? Tonight we spotlight a group that makes up the majority of the LGBTQ community, but remains misunderstood and marginalized. Bisexual people. Did you know more people identify as bisexual than as a lesbian or gay? Yet, as Tania Israel, professor of counseling psychology at the University of California, points out, quote, a lot of bisexual people don't actually openly identify as bisexual, to a large extent because of the concern about exclusion and the negativity that they get, end quote. Israel says bisexual folks often face skepticism, even outright denial. Quote, some people will say, well, I think it's just a phase. You're on your way to coming out as a lesbian or gay. Interestingly, people often think that bisexual women are really straight and bisexual men are really gay. Everybody thinks people are actually attracted to men, end quote. Such dismissal can cause them harm. When people encounter these kinds of messages, it can affect their mental health. And the stereotypes don't just stop there. Bisexual people are frequently over-sexualized or asked to prove it. They're met with intrusive questions, assumptions about threesomes, or fears about open relationships. So what can allies do? Israel suggests starting with simple support like thanking them for trusting you or asking them, what's it been like for you? There are also organizations like AMBI and the Bisexual Resource Center that offer community and connection for bi folks seeking visibility and support. The thing to remember is believing bisexual people and standing with them will make a real measurable difference. You can read more about it in the article on Time, written by Angela Hupp. You know, it was very interesting seeing this story because, you know, they do. A lot of people, I've had that conversations with people. I even experimented when I was coming out where I dated both. And it was just a matter, and it wasn't a matter of, it was really finding out who I was versus saying, oh, I wanted to play both sides of the field. No, it was a way of, you know, it is, for me, it was a determination. But there are a lot of people that enjoy that fluidity, as I would call it. And hey, more hats to you. I mean, it gives you more people to choose from.
Well, I find it interesting that it talks about people are worried about threesomes and open relationships when threesomes and open relationships are run rampant in the gay community.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Exactly. So it you know, that assumption needs to be taken away because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's also interesting that, you know, the comment she said that everybody just assumes that you like men. So the men are gay and the females just like men, and it's a phase, which shows how, you know, men-centric our community is already, and which is also another problem. With bisexuality, you know, it is again about finding out from that person. You know, if they're in a committed monogamous relationship, Anybody can look. Doesn't matter if they're looking at men or women. Right. It doesn't matter if they're lesbian, gay, or straight. You know, if they're not monogamous at heart, they're not monogamous at heart. So it's not just susceptible to bisexual people, it's susceptible to anybody.
Right.
I agree with that entirely. It's not just, it's a label. We have to include our LGBTQ in what we do. But why we have to stick with that? We don't. People think I'm bisexual or dating a woman. Well, this is a transgender woman. So what puts me as queer? I don't label anything else as a queer couple. So, again, we're talking about mental health so far, from the trans barbecue, the parenting thing, the Catholics, all mental health. How do we identify ourselves and love ourselves? It's all about, can you love yourself? Is my bottom line.
There is the issue of how we support by people. I remember, like, when I was editor of Options, I would write a lot about a state senator who I call him an out state senator. He had a wife. He's an old friend of mine that I've known forever, but he's bisexual. So, but I was like, you know, I do have a wife, and like, do you think I'm really part of the community? I'm like, well, I remember in our 20s what you used to do, girls. So like, I know you were part of the community, but also like, people are so harsh on bisexual men. Like, one, because a lot of bisexual men have a lot of sex with men, and like, well, that means you're gay. And as one TikToker explained why bisexual men have more sex with men, they're like, the reason is, if I want to have sex with a woman, I have to slay a dragon. If I want to have sex with a man, it's like ordering a pizza. So which one do you think I'm going to do most weeks? Like, so, and just because they have sex with more men than women doesn't mean they're not bisexual. You know, they still like it, and why not? You know, the only other thing I'll say on this, looking at the Gallup polling, is Gallup. I was interested to see one in other polls when I was at the task force. I'd see a much larger gap between the number of people that said they were gay versus lesbian, and I keep an eye on that just because we do worry about the economics of like, why is it hard to open lesbian businesses? If less people identify as lesbian, that might be why, and how do we help with that? But this was much closer than normal. And the other thing is that I'd love to see them dive more and ask that 55% more unique questions about the bisexual community, because we don't see a lot of diving into that in surveys.
I've seen a lot more, I think, in our youth, happening more and more, where they're initially coming out identifying as bisexual in their youth.
Well, they're exposed more. I
Right.
mean, they're seeing a more open and successful gay community. You know, past my generation, ancient as I am, you know, being gay was not necessarily a sin. It was a lack of success because gay men weren't successful. You didn't have a huge career. You couldn't have a huge career. You couldn't own a house. You always lived on the wrong side of the tracks. You were seedy and hidden in the shadows. That stereotype isn't necessarily there anymore.
Well, and I've also been a proponent of, we are, as human beings, we are animals, and we've used our brain to equate sex with love when actually it isn't. Sex is an animalistic instinct, and it's made there for procreation and pleasure. It has nothing to do with love. So, you know, the idea of bisexuality, where you're saying, you know, you can get sex with a man and it's like ordering out pizza. You know, I've always equated people, you know, we're having the bro jobs and all this, you know, you're seeing a lot more fluidity around sex in general. And I think that's where we need to get the education is, you know, to me, being gay, lesbian, bisexual, it's who you love, not who you have sex with necessarily. And, you know, having sex with multiple types of partners doesn't necessarily make you one type of thing. It means you have sex with multiple type of partners, and then there's who you love. So I agree with you, Alex. I'd like to see more in depth, you know, kind of dive into some of these Gallup polls instead of some, you know, are you bisexual or not? Because I think we're starting to learn and educate ourselves on the difference between sexuality and gender and all those types of
intimacy.
It's completely different.
And I agree with you, Rex, about, you know, it's more straight boys are experimenting. And I think it's high time we tell very attractive straight men that it's not gay if you want to touch your friends or me sometime. And that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world.
Thank God.
Support our LGBTQ story.
I think sharing queer news tonight.